Hello and welcome to another edition of Premier League Overtime. Great to have your company once again as we get set to wrap up round 3 of the Premier League and of course take a look at Blockbuster Weekend, which is just around the corner, so we can't wait for that. Sam Tugwell here, bringing you all the news, and of course with me each and every week, and once again today is Doug McDonald-Taylor, who brings us all the insight and analysis. Welcome, mate.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you for having me again, and looking forward to this week and also discussing all the results from last week in the Premier League.
It was a very interesting round, the last one. Plenty of good results and quite a number of really competitive and close games. As we have a look there were some games, Forestville and Norwood, I think in the men's, a close 8-point game there. One blowout, I think probably the only real blowout of the round there, Centrals and Warriors, as Woodville got up by 40 points in the women's. But nonetheless, a really competitive round. And I think one in particular, which you'd like to speak about here, Doug, was the Panthers and Rockets matchup over the weekend. That was really competitive in both men and women.
Yeah, definitely, both men and women. Firstly, the women. North went into this game without Jo Hill, so they needed girls to step up, and that's exactly what happened. They had 5 girls in double figures. Shannon McKay leading the way again. And look, Shannon Tarrant, who's come across from Eastern, she seemed to have settled into a new home, and they really needed to come out and get the win after their close loss to Woodville the week before. And to come out and keep South to 4 points in the first quarter really set up the game for them. They went on from there. In the men's, same again. North is they've held off South. South will be a bit disappointed with this. They've lost by 4, but they've only scored 69 points, Sam. So that's not going to generally get you too many wins. I think teams are starting to work South out a bit. They've got 2 main scorers in Ryan Gardner and Chris Johnson. Yep. And if you can nullify one of those 2, you should be able to keep them to a total that you can beat them to. And that's what North did. They kept Chris Johnson to 11 points. Forestville the week before kept Ryan Gardner to somewhere similar. So if you can keep one of those 2 guys down, then you'll probably get a win against South. And once again, Cody Rohrer has fitted in nicely. They're important to North. So he seems to be going along nicely. And Luke Wapunda, we have to mention again, another 16 rebounds.
Fantastic, hey?
Yeah, he's having a great year. And but certainly shutting down Johnson was the key, and they were able to do that. And North looking quite good. And I think they've got Southern this week. So top of the table clash, and that's going to be a cracker.
We'll chat about that in a moment, that top of the table clash. That's going to be really interesting, that one. But like you mentioned there, especially in the men's game, it was really a late last quarter surge from the Rockets that got them across the line. Notch up their 3rd win now, of course undefeated, as we mentioned, and then have kept the Panthers to a winless streak at the moment. Just quickly on South though, where are they heading? Because I think at the moment they're winless in both men and women. Last year they finished, I think it was a 3rd in the women, so they made it to the preliminary final, and now 7th in the men's, both without a win. I mean, is that a bad thing to start the season? Do you think they have what it takes to get themselves back up the ladder later on in the year?
Well, first of all, with the women, Sam, they lost 3 or 4 big names last year, and Jess Marnie and Molly McKendrick were 2 of those girls, and they just haven't been able to replace them. They only suited up with 8 girls against Forestville, last week, 2 weeks ago. So they're running with 8 or 9 players. Nodge is doing her best, and Madeline Cunningham, she's a good player, but they just don't seem to have the depth there to be able to really play with some of the better teams. With the guys, they've got a really good support cast. Shane Bowl, Tom McKenzie, Mark Fuller, Steve Pilkington. These guys have been around for a long time. They've been good players for a long time. Their problem is that none of those guys are big scorers. So, like we said, they've really just got the 2 scorers. So, teams have worked that out, and if you nullify one of them. But look, I think with South will turn it around. They'll start getting some wins on the board. They've got a good enough list, but for their sake, they'd want to start a bit sooner rather than later, Sam.
Exactly. Well, hopefully some wins around the corner for those guys. And over at Port Adelaide on the weekend, it was West taking on Sturt, and some really good contests there. And I think it was in the women's there, the Sabres just too strong. Burgess, Angley, Johnson, Richards all combining to help them to a nice 13-point win there. It was Stana Sazevich, good for West, 15 boards, 11 points, but nonetheless it was the Sabres show.
It was a Sabres show. Sturt women have started very strongly this season. I think a lot of people thought they were going to drop off with a couple of big outs in the off-season, but they're obviously playing well together. Jay Johnson's come in and she's playing her role, and she's added something. Caroline Burgess is back as well. But Westies, they don't have the depth as they've had in previous years, and also Ashley Vordermeyer was out this year. this week. So with the lack of depth, they certainly can't afford for Ashley not to play. So that was probably the difference in the end.
Well, it was a different story for West Adelaide in the men's game. However, as the Bearcats cruised home with a dominant second half effort, they scored 51-26 after half-time, which was clearly the difference. I think it was level at half-time. So essentially there for Sturt, it was just a second half fade out, and Perkins and Deng and Truslove all really important in that win.
Absolutely. Look, Sturt will be disappointed with their defensive effort. They pride themselves on their defence. So to give up 51 points in the second half, they won't be happy with that. But I like the look of this West team, Sam. You know, after the first round loss to North, I thought maybe they're going to be lacking a bit of depth this year. But since then, they've added Peter Crawford's come back, coming off the bench. Big Rankin came off the bench again, so he's back in the side. And they've just got a great mix. They've got a great mix of inside and outside players, great mix of youth and experience. Like you said, you've got young Dengs playing really well. Demetrius Perkins can clearly play. And then you've got the old firm with Truslove, Spud's back in the starting lineup. Braithwaite's, shooting the ball reasonably well. So, they've got the depth, they've got talent, and so, it's looking pretty good for Westies.
Well, up and up for them. Hopefully they can get some more wins on the board as we take a look at the ladder and where they are at. And with that win, especially in the men's, it's West Adelaide jumping up into third spot and Sturt all the way down 3 places to 6th spot. So they've essentially swapped places from where they were before. Both 2 and 1 though. It just goes to show the competition. It's quite strong in the men's at the moment. I think the top 6 have all got 2 wins there, and underneath they're 1 and 0 wins. So at that stage, it is very much a very strong men's competition. A lot of sides getting lots of wins and quite varied. But as we'll mention in a moment, it is Southern Tigers and North Adelaide Rockets taking each other on their blockbuster weekend, round 4. They're both 3 and zip. How do you think those 2 sides are going to go, especially with a few outs there for Southern with that China trip for the Adelaide 36ers?
Okay, yeah. Well, if they've got a couple of guys out, I'll probably favour North. They've got John Wernham will go up against Jordan Dodman, so that'll be a good matchup. I just think with those 2 big outs, so Creek and Johns won't be playing.
That's it.
So North should get over the line. Having said that, Southern had a good win over Eastern with all those guys out this week, and it won't be easy. But with those guys out, I'm going to have to go North. Luke Mapunda's playing well. Tom Rowe will get a defensive role, and he'll shut someone down. And I think they'll probably 10 to 15 point winners. That
could be a very good game indeed. So make sure you head on down to that one and check that out. That'll be at Pasadena, of course, there on Sunday evening. And then the women's ladder at the moment is the Sturt Sabres, who lead the way with the undefeated Norwood Flames as of the start of the 2015 season, if you like. They cannot skip a beat. Both 3-0 at the top of that table, and then North, Woodville, Southern and Forestville all 2 and 1 as well. So very competitive competitions across the board there. But I guess it is fair to say, if you want to see all those competitive sides take each other on, there is one weekend to do it, and this is the one. The Saturday and Sunday coming up. It is April 9 to 10, and you can head on down to Wayville Stadium on the Saturday to see all of the women's matches, and then Pasadena on the Sunday, and you can see all of the men's matches. That's from 1:15 p.m. all the way through till about 9:30 when the last game will wrap up there. And they're pretty good looking ticket prices. I tell you what, get in adults $8, under 16 $2, and if you want to get in a family, 2 adults, 2 children, that's $15 as well. So pretty good value for a whole day's worth, and I guess if you want to go 2 days in a row, weekend's worth of great basketball action.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be going both days, and it's just a great initiative. We can get down there, great value, see a few games, and it'd be probably great for the coaches as well, actually, to get their cameras out and film all the other teams. So, it should be a great weekend of basketball.
And $1 from every single ticket does actually go to the Australian Melanoma Research Foundation, so make sure you're supporting that as well. Heading on down to the games, I guess that's a wrap. Doug, fantastic show once again, and can't wait for round 4.
Yeah, can't wait for round 4, Sam.
It's going to be great, so look forward to that. Make sure you head on down to Wayville and Pasadena for those games. Thank you so much for tuning in to Overtime once again, and we'll see you next week for a wrap of all the blockbuster weekend. Bye for now.